Chinese state-run Global Times media outlet published an op-ed from its editorial board on Wednesday vowing that China's military will soon confront the U.S. in a hostile exchange. The U.S. will definitely see the PLA show up at its doorstep in the not-too-distant future, the op-ed said. The two sides' warships and aircraft on the seas will carry huge mutual strategic hostility, and the two countries will not yield to each other. Once the situation gets out of control and triggers military clash between China and the U.S., we must give full play to our home field advantage. China will definitely win once there is a war, the Global Times op-ed said. The op-ed came in response to U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Benfold conducting a freedom of navigation operation near the Mischief Reef in the Spratly Islands of the South China Sea on Wednesday. What the U.S. has done is a naked provocation, and this is obvious to all, the Global Times op-ed said, adding that the ship posed a threat to the many Chinese people and facilities on the island. The op-ed further called on China to take action. Only by making the U.S. have a taste of its own medicine can we touch the nerves of the U.S. and its allies, and reshape the Western world's understanding of U.S. bullying in the South China Sea, it said. The U.S. Navy 7th Fleet said the U.S. warship sailed in accordance with international law within 12 miles of Mischief Reef, an area that China has heavily militarized and reportedly began flying military flights out of earlier this year. The land reclamation efforts, installations, and structures built on Mischief Reef do not change this characterization under international law. By engaging in normal operations within 12 nautical miles of Mischief Reef, the United States demonstrated that vessels may lawfully exercise high seas freedoms in those areas, the U.S. Navy said. While the U.S. does recognize China's claim to the Spratly Island, it rejects any claim China makes beyond a 12 nautical mile limit of the Spratly Islands. Mischief Reef is among the 7 island reefs China claims as its own and has been militarizing in recent years. China established 9,000-foot runways on 3 islands in the South China Sea to accommodate any aircraft in its fleet, including its nuclear-capable H-6 bombers. Earlier this year, Washington Times obtained satellite images showing PLA KJ-500 airborne warning and control planes, Y-9 transport planes, and Z-8 helicopters on the islands, indicating a now permanent presence on the islands. The U.S. has repeatedly denounced China's militarization of artificial islands in the South China Sea, as well as its construction of military bases and other industrial facilities in the region, and aggressive behavior toward other nation ships in the region. China claims most of the mineral-rich South China Sea, including areas that reach the shores of its smaller neighbors. Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Vietnam and Taiwan also have overlapping claims to the maritime region. The U.S. has vowed to continue its freedom of navigation operations to ensure free passage in the South China Sea despite China's threats. In July 2020, the U.S. released its first official statement rejecting most of China's territorial claims in the South China Sea as unlawful. The document rejects China's claims to certain territories, such as James Shoal, located 50 nautical miles from Malaysia, as well as other specific territories off the coasts of Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. China has claimed some of these territories in its 9-line claim announced in 2009, despite these territories being located up to 1,000 nautical miles away from China's coast. The U.S. position aligns with a 2016 arbitral tribunal decision, in which it rejected China's claims as baseless against international law. Secretary of State Antony Blinken praised the decision on its 5th anniversary earlier this year, which China swiftly denounced.
Watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also,
it's Revelation chapter 11, verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended into heaven in a cloud, which is what they call a UAP, right? And unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? UAP. Um, and they ascended into heaven, right? In the UAP, and their enemies beheld them, right? Which basically goes into Wisdom of Solomon 5, right? And the same hour was there a great earthquake, which is going to be the ICBM missiles hitting, being shot from one end of the earth even into the other. And the 10th part of the city, which is America, right? Because America is divided into 10 parts, right? Your so-called area codes. There's 10 parts to it. So yeah, it'll be the earthquake and city, which is America, Babylon the Great. In the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, which is just a completion, right? The reprobates, the Edomites, the heathens that were meant to die in America dies. It's completion. And the remnant were affrighted and gave glory unto Yahweh of heaven, right? And the remnant that that happened to be in Babylon is going to be saved, right? The second woe is past, right? Because you had World War One, right? Which I did a lesson a while back ago when I went into this, and I looked back and I realized that the so-called Jewish was trying to get into the land in World War One. That's what World War One was about, because they were trying to get into the land to claim the land of Jerusalem for themselves, but they didn't quite get there. But they were basically had some people there to squad, be a Quaker and land squatters, right? And then the second war, which is World War II, which they call that I don't know if it's the 2-day war or some madness, but they got into the land in World War II. But what's his name? The president of Egypt, right, said that that the Jewish will never have peace because they left here black and came back white, right? Matter of fact, let's get that. The war for Israel, right? Going back into World War II. It's around that time when he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gabal Abdel Nasser, started, the Jews will never be able to live here in peace, right? And since they've been there, it's been nothing but war and calamity, and around the world, technically, right? And according to the prophecy, when the children of Israel get in that land, the world should not even learn of war anymore, right? When the children of Israel get in that land, there should be not any diseases, and you got a world on lockdown over a so-called a disease or a plague or whatever you want to call it. The world's on lockdown, so they cannot be the people. Period. It's just impossible, right? It just does not fit prophecy. It doesn't fit anything. You know what I mean, that they say that they are. It's been nothing but war, calamity, diseases, pestilence around the world since they've been there, right? Since World War, well, they were trying to get into their World War One, and they kind of was in there a little bit, like I said, they were squatting and all the other stuff. But World War II is when they really got in there, and this is what they asked this guy, Gabal Abdel Nasser, and he said that the Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black and came back white, and they know that those are not the people. They're not the original Jews, the real Jews. They're imposters. So yeah. So in this the third woe, which comes quickly, is going to be the end of Esau's society. And then what? The seventh angel sounded, and there was a great voice in heaven saying, the kingdoms of the world, right? Because, when you go back to Daniel 7 and 9, so the thrones were cast down and the Ancient of Days did sit. These thrones are going to be cast down because the Lord gave permission. He gave the okay for these thrones to be cast down. Nothing happens without the Most High's permission, right? And then if you go into Daniel 7 down to a little bit, is it 10 or so, but and then you just got to go down to, and it basically says that the Lord basically is giving the kingdom to his son. So that's World War III, right? Well, we'll get into it. We'll go ahead and, so it's just not, I'm just saying it, right? Because, well, let's go to Joel first, and then I'll go to Daniel 7, but just to show you that this is the World War III, and it's going to be given into our Lord, right? The seventh angel sounded, and there was given a great voice in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord, right, which is Yahweh, and of his Hamashiach, which is Yahweh Shai, and he shall reign forever and ever. So it says Joel chapter 3 verse 1, for behold, which means feast your eyes, pay attention, in those days, right, which are coming, it's called prophecy, and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, which the Lord is slowly doing it now by giving the wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and giving us our teachers so they can't be hid. The teachers, our teachers cannot be hid. I will also gather all the nations. So this is World War III. So this is the Lord saying, I will also gather all the nations and will bring them down to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, which means, well, basically judgment, valley of judgment, or valley of troops. Most people call it valley of troops, but it's also the valley of judgment, right? And will plead, and that plead is not, oh, please, please, I want you to please be good. I mean, because the Lord, first of all, you're heathens, so you have really nothing to do with the book, but you had the book in your hand, and you were in the land of uprightness, and you didn't uphold uprightness. So you had your chance, and you had your chance. So, I mean, so now that pleading is coming through with judgment. This plead is judgment now, right? With them, therefore, my people, and for my heritage, Israel, right? Which are you so-called black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, and you Israelite foreigners, right? Whether you look like an Israelite or your phenotype may look like another nation, but your bloodline goes back to Israel, that's the Lord's heritage, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and departed my land, right? When you deal with the so-called Jewish and the Palestinians and even some of those the Ishmaelites, they're kind of all fighting for that land. That's where that whole thing where the Wailing Wall is at, and I guess with the Balfour Declaration, the guy gave more part of that to the Palestinians, and it was a big old thing. And then their whole thing is to basically take over more land. So let's get into this, because this is World War III. Yeah, so these great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Yeah, so yeah, we got the four kings, which is Babylon, Persian Medio Empire, right? Greek Empire, Roman Empire, and then America is, well, NATO, EU, and America, right? Like I said, they have the Treaty of Rome, plus through the British exit is them partly being strong and partly broken, right? Where the miry clay, because America is a providence of England, so is Canada, and a lot of these other places, and through there secretly, through the secret government, they rule the world through London, through Israel, right? They rule the world, right? And this is the second is the kingdom that had the deadly wound and was healed, which is the Roman Empire, which is America, NATO, EU, and America. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom, right? Which is talking about the earth, the planet Earth, right? Because it said four kings shall come from the earth, and these are kingdoms, or what you call empires, right? Rulerships. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever, right? So it's never going to stop. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be given to our Lord, Yahweh Shai. Psalms 49 and 7, to execute vengeance upon the heathens, right? That's all you other nations, and punishment upon the people, right? To bind their kings with chains and their nobles, right? Because our people were kings. So you bind our kings with chains. So now we're going to bind your kings with chains and their nobles with feathers of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor, right? Because it's going to be an honor to have it, to be joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. It's an honor to be there, to be that. Have all the saints praise ye Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? Bashem Rekal Kadash. Revelation chapter 2, verse 26 says, he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. So all these nations, basically all these kingdoms, The thrones were cast down, right? The Ancient of Days did sit, gave Yahushua the power, to gave him the dominion to rule. And Yahushua said that we will be joint heirs with him, right? So he says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as a vessel of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even, right? Because it said joint heirs, even as I have received of my Father. So Yahushua is coming to have slaves who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. He's coming to beat you to shivers, but he's given the honor unto his men also, right? Second Ezra chapter 13 verse 11, and there were all mixed together the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burnt them up every one, so that upon a sudden the innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Right? So the Lord, Yahushua, and what they call unidentified flying phenomenons, or unidentified flying phenomena, unidentified flying saucers, or objects, or whatever you want to call it, which the chariots of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua come and destroy you. Joel chapter 2 verse 18. Then will Yahweh Bashem Yahushua by jealousy be jealous for his land, and pity his people, right? Because the people who's living there are not the people of the Most High. So the Lord is going to be jealous for his land and pity his people, what? And bring them back from the captivity that we have been in. Yea, Yahweh will answer and say unto his people, not the whole world, not we shall overcome every little brown boy with every little white hand, with every little, you know what I'm saying? Which we do have Israelites who look like the other nations, but their bloodline goes back to Israel. So it doesn't matter what they look like, as long as their bloodline goes back to Israel. And more important, the spirit. They got to be the bloodline and spirit. You know what I mean? It can't just be any old thing. Yeah, you know what I mean? It says, yea, and Yahweh will answer and say unto his people, behold, which means pay attention, feast your eyes upon, pay attention. I will send you corn and wine and oil, and ye shall be sanctified therewith, and I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen, right? All these other nations, because we've been a reproach all these years, right? You know, because we went into the Babylonian captivity, right? We were under the Persian Mede, or the Medo-Persian Empire. We were slaves under them. The Greeks came. We were slaves under them. The Romans came. We were slaves under them. And then they came back into power later on, right? And classified themselves under something different, under English and Spanish and French and Portuguese, and you know, and all these different Canadians and Americans, and had us under slavery again. but we're no longer going to be under you heathens anymore. But I will remove far off from you the northern army. What army could that be? America, the northern army, right? Right? Dealing with America, dealing with Canada, because they're supposed to be, what do they call it? Ally fighting, but they're the same people, man. You know what I mean? It's a province of Britain. So they're going to, Russia would be an army of the North country, right? Technically, even England is like a of the North country. You got even North Korea fighting off, shooting off, testing long range missiles, right? So all these kings of the North, but mainly we're talking about what? America, the Northern Army, and will drive him into the land barren and desolate, right? Because they're fighting over oil, right? And this is more oil than they have anywhere, right? With his face towards the east, and his hinder part, right, is, hinder part would be your back towards the uttermost sea, right? Right, and that's that land right there, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? The valley of judgment, right there. It says, and his stink shall go up, and the Lord gonna destroy him, and his ill savor shall come up, because he have done great things, right? Because the Lord's gonna destroy them, man. So this is Isaiah chapter 34, right? This World War III. This is the Lord. Come near, ye nations, and hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that there is therein, the world, right? So this ain't just talking to a little area, a little providence. No, the Lord's talking to the whole entire world. And all things that come forth of it. For the indignation, which means righteous anger, of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. Right? You got a military Russia? Oh, the Lord wants you. The Lord's ready for that. Right? You know what I mean? You got a military China? Oh, the Lord is about that business, man. Right? Was it North Korea? You shooting off missiles? The Lord's finna bring business to you, America. Which is why you're part of the NATO, right? Which is your military might, with all your so-called allies. The Lord's finna bring every single one of you. He's gonna plead with you, and it's gonna be judgment and not friendship, right? Saying, upon all their armies, he have utterly destroyed them. Hey, the Lord's already saying he's already destroyed you. He have delivered them into the slaughter, delivered them to the slaughter, the slaughterer. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall go up out of their carcasses, And the mountains, right, which means governments, so all your little governments shall be melted with their blood. So the Lord's destroying you, World War III. Yeah, death to America, death to all you nations, you freaking heathens. And we coming to bind your nobles with chains and fetters of iron. And it's an honor to praise Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakal Kudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations to the Akim and the Four Winds, preaching the truth and sincerity, the hopeful elect, the elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but your bloodline goes back to Israel and you'll come back to the fold. Shalom. To Sister Akwaf, listening in silence. Shalom. And death to all these heathens, and especially America.